Thanks, Chuck. I appreciate it. We've been engaged with the company on a variety of topics. Specific to Phase 4 implementation, if you go to the website, fdx.alpa.org, you'll see a small time scale on the homepage. That app will bring you into the implementation schedule. And it has the 4 phases loaded in there, Phase 1 through 4. Phase 4 being the final timed phase. That was to be complete at the end of May. And if you go in there, open up the website, I don't know if any of you have your iPads with you, you can go in there and you can select the individual links. If you want to educate yourself on the specific implementation topic, you can do that. But you'll see that all Phase 4 items have been complete. Specifically, I wanted to mention, because this is sort of a new animal for our pilots, and it's the base simulator support event. It is completely voluntary, and there's a pass-down ability for a pilot that's on reserve to pass it down to the next person in leveling order. The advanced reserve assignment, it's done through the advanced reserve assignment process. The company can go in and they can put the event on your schedule, and you have up to 12 hours essentially to acknowledge and close out that event. It doesn't preclude, say, flight training from picking up the phone if they need to get you there and they want to get you there, and asking you if you're willing to take that event. And unlike normal trips, this one you can actually say, yeah, you know what, thanks, but I'm not interested, don't feel like I want to do it today. For whatever reason, you don't have to give them any reason, just say no thanks. They'll move on to the next pilot in leveling order, and that can continue all the way down the bottom of the list, and then if they can't find anybody, then they'll go through their previously normal process of trying to draft their instructor pilots to fill those seat support simulators. There's one caveat here that once you receive that notification, so you click on it, you open the link, you have 15 minutes to basically dismiss it, in other words, pass it down. If you don't, they're going to deem you've accepted that, so it's similar to a trip assignment. Before I get into the SEC phase, I wanted to just touch upon Section 24. So if you go into the website and you see Section 24, it's going to read complete to you. And the company has done all the programming behind the scenes, and it was tested years ago, early on in its development. Jim is working on a plan, hopefully an education plan for you guys to step through and understand the concepts and the nuances of that Section 24. If you haven't cracked it open yet and started looking through it, you're going to want to become familiar, because if you don't do it this fall, you're going to be doing it next spring, and there's significant changes in the way that bidding process works. Important to note there is how you'll bid for training. And unlike now, where we get this giant training list that goes out 2 years, or the training letters that go out 2 years, you'll bid month in and month out based on your seniority, just as you do right now with the bid pack. So if you're number 1 in that training list, you'll see which assignments are in there for the month. If you like that month and you want to grab one, then you'll bid for it. Obviously, if you're the last person on the list, you put in what you want and see how the chips fall out on that. As far as the SEC phase, this is the enhancement process to the current secondary lines that are in works right now. As you can see just from this screenshot, the complete on default secondary line preference of 728. So if you go in there right now, if you're in the secondary world, if you're that type of bidder, you'll go in and you can put default settings in there underneath the system. If you haven't already seen that, you might want to take a look at it. But these are coming in, I'd say, piecemeal. It's not a single tranche on this. It's a piecemeal effort, and they try to target individual small bid packs with these updates. We don't know, they work with an outside software firm, and I believe the software's Adopt. Our SIG works with them, and Jim works on that project as they continue to develop the software updates. There'll be significant enhancements in that development, especially in regards to vacation. We try to stay ahead of that, and if there's something that we know is going to be turned on, we try to develop education pieces for the pilots. It's challenging at times because sometimes they'll have a software update that gets tested on their side, and they'll flip the switch, and that's when we find out about it, is when we get a phone call from a pilot saying, hey, what's this new feature here? So unfortunately, that's, we don't have 100% transparency with that issue. We work to do it as well as we can, but I would suggest if you're a secondary line bidder, visit the website. Often, as soon as we get an update from the company, we update it immediately. So if you jump into here, that'll give you the best information, the most up-to-date information. It has selectable links. We hyperlinked each of those sections of the contract. So when you do select one, it'll drive you right to that section, and you can read about that implementation issue. Onto the Jumpseat software update. The company put on a demonstration for us a few weeks ago to the software behind the scenes, and the interface with the pilots here is a significant improvement compared to what we see and how we utilize that system today. It was impressive. It implements all the BP booking priority codes that you've been reading about. BP 1 through 8 is how it's listed in the pilot benefit book with off. I believe the company communication on June 8th listed it as BP 9, so we're not quite sure, but they're one and the same. As far as the transparency, what it's doing for the pilots, you can log on. You want to look at a particular flight, you can say check the LA to Memphis flight. You can see that there's an MD-11 going. It'll show you only 2 seats. You know it's a sleeper. It'll show you exactly how many seats are available. If pilots have already booked a particular or reserved a particular seat, or other people, it's going to show you the booking priority codes that they have reserved those seats in, status in. You can't see the person's name, but you see the codes that have been reserved. So it gives you more or an improved look at what's available when you're trying to commute. Some of the booking priority codes that are important to the pilots are BP3, BP2, BP4, BP7, and BP8, and then of course the offline. The BP2, really, you don't see that very often, and it's just when the company needs to utilize, they have to get you. You're typically in the theater, and there's operational emergency, and they're trying to move you, and typically they'll put you on the jump seat. That's when the BP2 status is assigned to you. BP4 is the big one, and that's the one that most of the pilots will get to and from work. And essentially, now this is where we don't want there to be any confusion. The way the language reads, and it read that way in the company's communication, is that it's travel in lieu of a company purchase ticket. But you're not limited to that. Other employees are limited to that. The pilots, however, have contractual rights that allow you to commute to and from work without regard to your deviation bank and without regard to a company purchase ticket. The way it is now, that's no change. The only difference is it's giving you a higher priority status, so it's bringing you in on a BP4 level as long as you're within 3 days of a company event. The company event can be anything from a simulator to, if you happen to be maybe a manager working in standards, it's an office day typically on the calendar, so it sees the underlying MyMint schedule for the instructors, and it also sees, if you're not an instructor, your VIP schedule. So if you have a reserve or a trip or a hotel standby, any scheduled event with FedEx, it gives you the BP4 priority. Important to note here is that with the schedule underlying, it's going to pop up and it's going to tell you the highest possible BP code you can take. There are some manual codes that have to be entered, however. It doesn't know if you have a personal emergency, if there's an operational emergency, business emergency, which would be a higher BP3 code. So typically you're on the phone with either the duty officer, your fleet captain, and working in correlation or in conjunction with Jumpseat administration. So those codes are going to get entered manually. It won't know if you're an emergency booking priority code. The BP4 can bump all lower priority codes with the exception of BP5, which is training observations required by regulation. The BP4 Jumpseat reservations in the off booking priority, or can bump in the off-booking priority up until 1 hour before showtime. Again, the off-booking priority are our offline pilots trying to commute to and from work or going wherever they need to go. There's not a huge change with there other than it does it automatically. BP7 is the old staging for pilots, and it's also eligible for other AOD and GOC employees. And the BP7, this is where, you know, if we've had conflicts on the jump seat of who gets the seat and what priority, this should clear it up with our BP4 priority. And now with BP7, this is in and out of your staging base that you've indicated in PRISM. And you can bump all lower priorities, and there's only 2 lower ones, BP8 and off, until 24 hours prior to your scheduled departure time. For BP8, this is your non-essential travel. This is your personal travel that don't fall with any of the staging parameters or the BP4 parameters. And then, of course, the offline, which I referenced, is CAS. And now the company may refer to it, and the software may populate ultimately as a BP9, but what we saw was it was indicated in the pilot benefit book as off.